think there is a risk of a national unity crisis by way of Alberta should the Conservatives not win the election?
Let's start with Preston Manning. This is the guy who was the leader of the Reform Party, sort of a populist Western movement that came to power. He was the leader of the official opposition from 1997 to 2000, right? He's this strong.
The Conservatives' crisis, triple lock promises. Before we dive into the chaos unfolding at the Conservative Party conference, if you value sharp political analysis that cuts through the Westminster noise, hit that subscribe button now. Trust me, you'll want to be here for what's coming next. Right, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or rather, the pensioners in the party conference hall. The Tories have just reaffirmed their commitment to the state pension triple lock, and frankly, it's a decision that's tearing the party apart from the inside. Shadow Chancellor Mel Stride stood at that Manchester stage and declared, without a hint of irony, that the Conservatives remain firmly committed to the triple lock. But here's where it gets interesting, because whilst he's making these grand proclamations, his own colleagues are quietly sharpening their knives behind the curtain. The triple lock, for those who need a reminder, guarantees that state pensions rise by whichever is highest, 2.5% inflation or earnings growth. Sounds reasonable, doesn't it? Except it's become a political millstone around the neck of a party desperately trying to reinvent itself. Stride insists the savings they're presenting are merely a down payment, that they'll examine all areas of government spending between now and the next election. But notice what he didn't say. He didn't say the triple lock is sustainable. He didn't say it's fair. He simply said they are standing by it, because politically they have absolutely no choice. Now, here's where the plot thickens deliciously. Enter Tom Tugendhat, Conservative MP, who apparently didn't receive the memo about party unity. At a fringe event, the same conference, mind you, Tugendhat dropped an absolute bombshell. He called the UK economy a Ponzi system for the old and declared that the triple lock is simply not sustainable over the next 20 or 30 years. Let that sink in for a moment. The Shadow Chancellor is on the main stage pledging unwavering support for the triple lock, whilst one of his colleagues is comparing it to a fraudulent investment scheme just a few rooms away. You couldn't script this level of internal chaos if you tried. Tugendhat went further, arguing that the Conservatives are actively driving away young voters by defending this policy. He's essentially saying the party is mortgaging the future of British youth to secure the votes of pensioners today. It's a brutal assessment, but is he wrong? The triple lock costs billions, and with an aging population, that cost only spirals upward. Meanwhile, younger generations are struggling with housing costs, stagnant wages, and wondering if they'll ever see a pension themselves. The intergenerational warfare isn't coming. It's already here, and the Tories are stuck defending a policy that benefits one side overwhelmingly whilst hemorrhaging support from the other. But the Conservative conference wasn't just about pensions and internal contradictions. James Cleverly, the Shadow Housing Secretary, took aim at London Mayor Sadiq Khan, blasting his housing record with the kind of statistics that make headlines. According to Cleverly, only half a house per thousand people was built inside the Southeast last year, compared to 2.5 per thousand outside the region. His argument? Khan's failure is dumping the housing crisis onto rural Britain. It's a clever bit of politicking, shifting blame away from years of Conservative governance and onto a Labour mayor. Cleverly then proposed making it easier for older couples to downsize without facing punitive property taxes, which would theoretically free up homes for families and first-time buyers. Common sense, he called it. Though one might wonder why this common sense didn't materialize during the 14 years the Tories were actually in power. Then we have the delicate matter of Reform UK, the insurgent party that's become the Conservatives' worst nightmare. Veteran MP Andrew Rosendale didn't mince words when he called for an electoral pact between the Tories and Reform. His reasoning? The British electoral system can't accommodate two Conservative parties without splitting the vote and handing elections to Labour. It's a pragmatic assessment of political reality, but it's also an admission of weakness. Rosendale reminisced about Thatcher's era when everyone who's now in Reform would have been part of the Conservative Party. The subtext is devastating. The Tories have lost so much of their base that they are now begging their rivals for cooperation. Speaking of reform, polling presented at the conference revealed that half of Conservative members don't believe Badenoch should lead the party into the next general election. 50%. Half the membership has already lost faith in their leader, and we're not even halfway through this parliamentary term. Robert Jenrick is apparently the favourite to replace her, with 37% support. But here's the kicker. 4 to 6% of Tory members would support a merger with Reform UK. The party of Churchill, Thatcher and Cameron is seriously considering merging with Nigel Farage's outfit. That's not adaptation, that's capitulation. Shadow Transport Secretary Richard Holden delivered red meat to the conference faithful by attacking Labour's so-called anti-car policies. He accused Labour of actively punishing motorists, from a 2030 ban on new petrol and diesel cars to what he termed a cyclist-first ideology. The Conservatives, Holden declared, stand for freedom, particularly the freedom to drive without government interference. It's classic culture war positioning, pitting drivers against cyclists, freedom against regulation. Whether it's serious policy or political theatre is debatable, but it certainly got applause. Shadow Work's pension secretary outlined her vision for welfare reform, and it's as uncompromising as you'd expect. She wants to fix the sick note system, bring back face-to-face assessments, end sickness benefits for low-level mental health problems, and ensure British citizens are first in the queue for benefits. Stop turning people into victims, she said. Put them to work. It's the kind of rhetoric that plays brilliantly with the party base but will face fierce opposition from disability advocates and mental health charities. Whately's framing the debate around personal responsibility and fairness, classic Conservative values, but the delivery is hard-edged enough to make even some Tories uncomfortable. Andrew Griffith, Shadow Business Secretary, promised to repeal Labour's Employment Rights Bill, the legislation championed by Angela Rayner before her resignation over that tax saga. Griffith argued the bill would destroy job opportunities for young people, a curious position given the earlier hand-wringing about youth alienation. The Conservatives are positioning themselves as a party of business and deregulation, stripping away what they see as Labour's job-killing red tape. Whether businesses actually want this level of deregulation, or whether workers will accept diminished rights in exchange for theoretical job creation, remains to be seen. Lord Frost, the former Brexit negotiator, delivered perhaps the most brutally honest assessment of the conference. At a fringe event, he laid out 4 steps of Conservative recovery, defined the boundaries of conservatism and enforced them, set out a genuinely Conservative program focused on nationhood, border control, and reducing the size of the state, communicate better, and critically, stop rubbishing Reform voters. Frost's final admission was devastating. He's not convinced any of these things will actually be done, which is why he's rather negative about the party's future. When your own people are this pessimistic at your own conference, you know you're in trouble. What we're witnessing at this Manchester gathering isn't a party conference. It's a public autopsy. The Conservatives are dissecting their election defeat in real time, and they can't agree on cause of death. Was it their failure to control immigration? Their economic management? Their internal chaos? The answer, maddeningly for them, is probably all of the above. The triple lock debate encapsulates the dilemma perfectly. They know it's unsustainable. They know it's alienating younger voters, but they're terrified to touch it because pensioners actually turn out to vote. The flirtation with Reform UK reveals an existential crisis. The Conservatives built their modern identity on being the natural party of government, the sensible adults in the room. Now they are contemplating merger with a populist insurgency because they've lost control of the right-wing vote. It's a fall from grace that would be Shakespearean if it weren't so predictable. The policy announcements, from housing to welfare to workers' rights, all follow a familiar pattern. Blame Labour for current problems, promise to repeal their solutions, and offer deregulation as a universal cure. It's ideologically consistent, certainly, but it's also the same playbook that led to electoral catastrophe. The question isn't whether these policies are conservative enough. It's whether they are adequate to the challenges Britain actually faces. What makes this conference so compelling is the transparent desperation. These aren't politicians confidently outlining their vision for Britain's future. These are survivors of a shipwreck arguing about how to rebuild a boat while still treading water. Half the party wants to tack right towards reform. The other half wants to reclaim the center ground. Meanwhile, their leader struggles to command loyalty from her own membership, and colleagues publicly contradict each other on fundamental policy questions. The Conservatives face a choice that goes beyond policy detail. They can either become a populist right-wing party that competes directly with Reform, or they can rebuild as a centre-right coalition capable of winning beyond their core vote. They cannot do both, and the longer they vacillate, the more time Labour has to entrench. The triple lock debate is a microcosm of this larger struggle. Do they prioritise their elderly base or court younger voters? Do they promise fiscal responsibility or electoral bribes? Do they tell uncomfortable truths or comfortable lies? This conference has answered none of these questions definitively, and that indecision is itself the story. The Conservative Party is at war with itself over what it means to be conservative in modern Britain, and until they resolve that conflict, they will remain exactly where they are now, shouting into the void whilst Labour governs unchallenged. If you found this analysis valuable, make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors, because British politics is only getting messier from here, and you'll want the sharpest analysis when it all kicks off again. See you in the next one.